the birds didn't have a chance to get out of their nests, and they had to be plowed under because the developer said, oh, you know, we need lawns immediately. The new people want their lawns. So
the bobolinks?
yeah, exactly, the bobolinks.
The monarchs.
We watched the monarch butterfly's nectar. There's, you know, the theory about the milkweed, but the nectaring territory is equally important for the journey back. So, I mean, I've literally stood on clover patches on my farm and watched hundreds of monarchs nectaring. They nectar in the last week of August. So I think it's important for ecosystem preservation. So this is where I really resent, and you can take it back to the Good Food Institute, I really resent wiping out of ecosystems and putting all kinds of, I guess the old-fashioned term, malarkey on some of the labels that, oh, if you want to save the environment, like Josh Tetrick had on his Just Mayo, oh, if you want to save the environment, use my mayonnaise. My pseudo mayonnaise. Okay, so I called him up and I said, you know, what is this? And he goes, well, I actually know a farmer. You know, but there's so, you know, it's all about making money, and it's not, so he had on the figure, well, we've saved so many square feet of land. All right, I calculated the square feet, it was like not even one farm. You know, so it's kind of like very deceptive use of terms, and, you know, kind of like good-hearted people in the city see it and say, oh, this is great, but it's not necessarily the picture that's painted. But yeah, so I mean, watching the farms go out, I just am horrified to see the subdivisions coming in.
Is there any way to do the Canada? I mean, that's the first I ever heard of that. That they're.
Well, there are farmers that are. Yeah, they tried. The dairy farmers tried that in the last farm bill, but the processors went ballistic. In the last farm bill, the largest dairy organization tried to implement a form of supply management that would control milk production to tailor to the marketplace, or at least, you know, have some kind of a signal. But the processors, who really love to have the milk as input as cheap as possible, went ballistic.
Can we get your response?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you raise a very good point, which is a lot of the dairy industries and certainly small dairy farmers' problems today, in my view, are from the consolidation and concentration of power in the agriculture sector that Lorraine was talking about. And you know, I think in this regard, kind of the people on the more environmental and animal welfare side can find common cause with smaller farmers like Lorraine in recognizing that this is actually a terrible thing. That you know, the way the agriculture industry as a whole, not just dairy, but chicken producers and
we do have some larger farms in our area. I mean, there's one farm with 1,000 cows. It's 4 brothers who run the farm together. It's more efficient for the brothers to all share. So, I mean, I don't particularly condemn, you know, say, you know, 1,000 cow farm or whatever. But it is very frightening with the 100,000 cow farms coming online, and, you know, if you look on the internet, you'll see the story of the experts going to build this farm in China, which will be the 100,000 cows, or the 20 and 30,000 cow farms of El Morai Dairy in the Saudi Arabian desert. I mean, I don't see, you know, they're buying alfalfa from China or from California and Arizona to be hauled to Saudi Arabia to feed the cows. So that is such a perversion of you know, what we would consider to be food security, and you know, but they see it as important. But you know, I mean, the Chinese are going all over the world looking for food resources. With the purchase of Smithfield, they now own 20% of America's breeding sows. So I mean, you know, it's an esoteric fact that you know, when dairy farmers get together and have drinks, we talk about the Chinese now own 20% of the sows, but everybody else like doesn't know like how food systems are shaping up. So that's where I get back to my idea of the urban agrarian, that urban people really need to be, you know, leaders in knowing. So, you know, I've tried to get the food movement people to include us in talking. But, you know, I am more probably a farmer militant. You know, my family was always involved in the milk strikes and things like that. My parents would always let us go pour milk in the streets of Utica when we had to protest prices and things like that. So, and I've always wanted to be a member of the French Farmers Union.
Can I ask one quick thing?
Yeah, go ahead, Dana.
Is there, and this might be just an urban perspective, so I appreciate that I have that, but is there nothing else, another choice between the farms going out and sprawl? Is there nothing else that we could do as a state to support the farms and have something else be grown? Because even if we don't purchase dairy, let's say, a lot of us love to support local.
Yeah.
And the more local, the better. So
it's
is
hard
there
because
another
so much of the
option
infrastructure is gone. You know, like there used to be small grains grown in my area, but all of the grist mills are long gone. You know, they all had OSHA problems, so they're all shut down, so, say, grains. I mean, we've looked at hops, but then Cornell had a website and an article saying, oh, it's next to impossible to make money in hops. I'm like, all right, forget that. Then the people in the grasslands were trying to do the pastured beef, but, also really, there's just not a lot of connection to get the stuff into the city. I think marketing efforts would really help, to help, and not just the New York farmers, but Pennsylvania and, and all that. So that's where, I've urged people to try to get into the city. And, I'm actually going to be visiting some cheese stores while I'm here, because my next door neighbor makes cheese where I work at I sneak out once a week. I don't tell the local bar. I always say, oh, I'm going to a conference, but then I actually go and I sneak out to the cheese plant. I work as a cheesemaker one day a week. So I'm going to stop at some cheese stores while I'm here and ask them how they get cheese, and if they're, what distributors they use. But yeah, so true, to be able to get your stuff into the city somehow. It just, and I don't know if New York City had, I know Christine Quinn had a whole big thing called Food Print, and it was about what you're talking about, but then she didn't get elected. So I don't know what happened to that proposal.
I think that should be a priority for New York
But I
City.
think it was called Food Print or something like that.
Or other
Yeah.
farming opportunities for all that.
Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question. Does anybody have a pressing question? Yes.
So both of you kind of alluded to this. So I grew up in an urban area, moved to agriculture, and became a state FFA officer, and now back in law school in an urban area. So how much of this controversy, and probably a lot of controversy in agriculture, can be solved by early education in agriculture and food?
Very good point. That is true. The schools, they have very little in the way of agricultural information for kids. And even the liberal arts colleges, very rare that anybody would take a course on agriculture or whatever. Like I remember being in law school, and every time something was mentioned related to agriculture, people would start laughing. But it was like, they didn't really grasp what it was about. But like agriculture in the classrooms, I like the idea in New York City of community gardens. I like the educational efforts that some of the people, I don't know if you know of, like Karen Washington and the Just Food people, they like to have school programs so the kids grow a vegetable of their own, or there are some projects where kids even have chickens. I think those are wonderful for cities. And there is a program called Agriculture in the Classroom, where once a year they select a book, and people volunteer to go into the schools to read to kids about food production. But I was in France in 2008, and I noticed they have a huge agricultural emphasis of teaching children about food and about agriculture. I went to La Salon de l'Agriculture, which is the annual show in Paris, and literally busloads of kids were coming in from all over the place and getting tours of, the chefs had stations set up showing them how to cook. There were dairy farmers letting them milk the cows. It was like really, great to see things geared towards school children at that show. So I've often wondered if we could have a show like that in New York City. Like bring in a couple hundred cows into Jacob Javits Center, and
That would get people in there.
No, I thought I really, but there's a disconnect here that we don't have what they have in Europe. I mean, I don't know why that is, because it's not like we're that far away. We're just up the thruway.
Any closing thoughts, Nigel or Larry?
Not for me.
All right, I just want to thank all of our audience members for your excellent questions, and I think our panel members will probably stick around for at least a few minutes if you have anything else you want to bring up or discuss. Thank you all for your attention. Thank you to our panelists for a really excellent, informative presentation. I know I've certainly learned a lot tonight, and that's all for tonight, so thank you again.